our DFL endorsed candidate for House District 57A, Erin Maye Quade. Erin was born and raised in Apple Valley and has worked hard to represent her home state and now seeks to serve her hometown in the state legislature. After attending the University of St. Thomas here in Minnesota, she volunteered for Senator Amy Klobuchar and later worked for Governor Mark Dayton and President Obama. Currently, she serves as a community representative for Congressman Keith Ellison in the 5th Congressional District. In her campaign, Erin is advocating for a sustainable educational, economic, and environmental future for Minnesota, as well as equity for all Minnesotans. Thank you so much for joining me today, Erin.
Thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you and so excited about your campaign. So, first question for you. You're running to be a state representative. What has it been like to be on the campaign trail?
It's been energizing. It's really cool to go door to door and talk about the futures that our community wants and the vision that we all share for our community and our state. It's been long because I work full-time and then campaign full-time, so figuring out how to balance sleep and dog life and wife life has been interesting, but it's been amazing. I mean, we have amazing people in this state, and I've seen an outpouring of support, an outpouring of ideas, which is really cool. I've just been really energized by the entire process.
What's the response been on the doors? Pretty good?
People are thrilled. They say, anyone who knocks on my door has my vote. So I think we have a lot of untapped potential there for some community organizers. We have some amazing advocates, some amazing people in the area, and people are very excited to get plugged in and to figure out how they can use their energy and their excitement and their ideas to kind of move us all forward together.
What motivated you to run at this time in your life? You've got a lot going on. You're working full-time for a congressman, doing great things already in the community, but what was the impetus for you to run for State House?
So, well, you said, I work for Congressman Ellison, and I went with him to the Sheridan Story, which is a local nonprofit that pairs churches and businesses with schools to cover the weekend hunger gap for students who don't have access to food at school on a Saturday and Sunday. And I was with Keith, and we were talking about how this happens in the 5th, Lucy Laney, Bethune, North, and I was looking over at the map of where they serve, and they serve in my elementary school, they serve in my middle school, and they serve in my high school, and I was blown away. I didn't know that there were so many hungry children in my schools, and so I kind of ran home, and I was going to partner my church with elementary school, and I stopped mid-dial, and I was like, this is a Band-Aid to a much larger problem. We need to fix the systems that don't allow parents to work 40 hours a week, pay the rent, and put food on the table. And so after I found out poverty had gone up 380% in my elementary school, I said, this has got to be addressed. And no one was talking about it, so I said, okay, well, I'm going to run for office and at least elevate the issue and get these families connected to their government so that this process works for them.
Well, we thank you for doing that. A lot of people leave their district and never come back, and I think you realized the need in your district to come and make sure that these issues are not only discussed, but that something gets done. So thank you for doing that. I know one of the issues on your campaign platform has been educational sustainability. Can you talk a little bit about how Minnesota invests in education to improve the schools and why it's personal to you?
Yeah, so ISD 196, where I go to school, where your kids go to school,
yes.
One of the best school districts in the nation. Certainly, I think it's the best district in the state. And I'm successful because of the community I grew up in and because of the teachers I had. And I want to make sure that the kids coming up behind me have that too, if not just as good, better. And we borrowed from our schools. We borrowed from our kids' futures for 12 years under Pawlenty, and that's completely unacceptable. And I'm so thankful we elected Governor Dayton. We paid back our schools. We started investing in our kids. We have all-day kindergarten. But we're still at 2006 levels of funding for kids, not 2016. So I want to make sure that we are staying where we need to be in at least the decade we need to be in. And I think we can look at education now and see that education has become increasingly individualized. And there are more needs that are being met in schools, like the food and mental health and social workers. And so we can make schools our community hubs. They already were, right? And so resources can be provided. We can support the family and the student. Wraparound services, I think, are the way that we can have an educational future that's sustainable for all students.
There are parents in Minnesota who work 40+ hours a week and still are, struggling. Many of them still living in poverty. What can Minnesota do in order to ensure that its economy improves so that it's helping all people lead and live more stable lives and help bring people up and move them up the economic ladder?
Yeah, so I think it's always important that we think about how everyone interacts with our economy. And when we have a minimum wage that doesn't allow people to live a life that meets basic needs, right? Housing, food, and clothing, then we're not doing our job. We need to increase the minimum wage because we cannot have people working themselves into poverty. We also need to provide systems in our economy that makes a working economy work for working families, is what I always say. So college affordability is going to be huge. As we hear the retirement boom, making sure that families can take care of aging and elderly loved ones, disability services, things that we can all use collectively that cost individually a lot of money for a person, but not a lot for a state and a community to do. So we can support each other as we go through kind of this next phase of our state. So I'm very excited.
I just read recently that Dakota County decided to vote to themselves out of the CTIB.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, transportation is a big issue in the Apple Valley. Well, it is for the whole South Metro and Dakota County in particular. Do you have any thoughts on transportation and transportation funding generally?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I don't blame Dakota County for wanting to get out. We haven't gotten what we put in. That being said, it takes strong local partners to make sure we're getting what we put in, and it takes a legislature that's willing to fund transportation. The House was completely unwilling to do that, led by the GOP this year. So I want to be that strong partner, and I wanted, you know, I reached out to all the county commissioners. I said, hey, when I'm elected, I will be that advocate for you because we do deserve to get some transportation and get in what we, or get out what we put in. But you know, we need to fund to fix our roads and bridges. We absolutely need to match the federal dollars that are coming in so we can do that Southwest Light Rail, because that's going to be how we get money for future projects. So if we can't fund what we already said we were going to fund, then I don't think they're going to believe us when we say we're going to make something else. And we live right at the bottom of the red line. We could get a light rail right down the end of Cedar and right by, you know, my high school, and get people to work, get people to jobs in the city, and people from the city out to jobs in Apple Valley. We're getting new businesses there all the time. So transportation is going to be crucial. They say a job is what you need. Well, if you can't get to that job, then how is that going to help you?
Right. How do we break the logjam in St. Paul? I mean, in Washington, we've seen polarization to the extreme. It seems to be broken. We see some progress in Minnesota, but frankly, the last 2 years have not been promising. So what's going to be different about an Erin Maye Quade in the legislature? How is she going to break through some of that gridlock and get things done for Apple Valley?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is going to be starting where we agree or starting where we can negotiate, right? So we agree on a lot more than we disagree on, and somehow we always start the fight where we disagree. So I think the first conversation we have is, okay, what are the investments we want to make together as a state? Education is always a great place to start. And we can talk about the nuances of it, but that's a place where we agree. We can talk about what do we want the economy to be like for working families? How do we want Minnesotans to interact with our economy? And we can talk about those nuances. How can we protect our environment, make sure we have clean drinking water and good air quality? We can all agree that those are good things. How are we going to do that? So I think that's the difference between what we have now and what I would bring. But I think it's also generational. There are so many things that my generation, and I think we're pretty close in age, we just, at this point, it's not worth fighting about anymore, right? I'm married, I'm going to stay married, and that's not a fight we need to have at the Capitol anymore. No family sitting at home not eating and thinking, man, I wish Erin wasn't married to her wife. You know, so we got to stop putting out the issues that divide us and start talking about the things that we care about more. So I went to St. Thomas. It was a pretty conservative school, and I loved that experience, working with folks who sit very far apart from me on the spectrum, and we could find 3, 4, 2, 1 issues to work on together because it was important that we find that work to do together.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. You have to start from a point of wanting to get something done, and frankly, mutual respect and knowing that there is common ground to be found, even in extreme positions that people bring to the legislature. But I think that's absolutely right. So, big weekend this weekend with Pride. What do you and the wife have planned?
Door knocks on Saturday for both of us. We're both organizers, so I'll be door knocking for me with a bunch of volunteers on Saturday, going door to door talking about futures, and she'll be going door to door talking about gun violence prevention, which is very important. Obviously, Pride weekend, we're thinking of Orlando, so I'm glad we're both going to be out doing that. Gun violence prevention is a big issue I'm hearing on the doors before Orlando and certainly after. And then Sunday we'll be in the parade, which will be awesome, and we'll have our nieces down with us, my brother and sister, and you know, brunch, because we're gay. We love brunch. We're going to have brunch, mimosas.
I love the shirts that your nieces made. So.
Yeah, I want to be like Erin, yeah.
Those are great. Just lastly, I know this is a little bit off script, but who are your political heroes, and who do you hope to emulate? What type of leadership qualities do you want to bring into the legislature?
So that's really funny. So I always say that there's a difference between Democrats and DFLers. And the reason I say that, Democrats have always been inclusive. We've always been looking forward. We've always had a great vision. DFLers have been those leaders, right? Hubert Humphrey, 1948, talking about equity and, you know, the Minority Report, as it was called at the time, but that was 48. We didn't get anything till Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, 64, 65. That's a leader. Marriage equality was in the DFL platform in the 70s. We didn't get it till 2013. Those are leaders. And so DFLers have been leaders for me. Paul Wellstone, Hubert Humphrey, Amy, Erin Murphy, Michelle Obama. I know she hasn't been our president, but she has had a policy vision. She has had a human vision that I just love. And then, you know, Keith has been an amazing, amazing mentor to me. He shows me what it's like to, he's always oriented to what are the people? What do they need? He's not trying to have a philosophical debate about whether this is this thing in the Constitution. He's like, well, whatever, it exists already and people are getting, you know, screwed by it, so can we fix it first and then we can debate this later? And he also shows me how to work way across the aisle, right? He's on bills with Rand Paul and he's on a caucus with Tom Emmer, who replaced Michelle Bachmann. So, you know, bipartisanship, he shows me how that works, and I think he's been a really fantastic mentor.
Well, that sounds great. We can't wait till you're in the legislature.
Very
I'm so
excited.
excited for your campaign. You're running an awesome campaign so far, high energy, talking about the issues. You're out there talking to voters every day. And we just can't thank you enough for stepping forward to run for this office. And we are so excited for the opportunity to see you in the legislature come next January.
Well,
so
thank you
so much for being with us. I want to thank Erin Maye Quade again for joining me on the Chair's Corner today. It has been great to get to know her campaign a little better and to talk about the issues that she's so passionate about. I would like to remind our viewers that Erin is a DFL endorsed candidate and to please vote for her on November 8th. As always, I really appreciate your continued support of the DFL party. And if you want to volunteer for great candidates like Erin, visit our website at www.dfl.org. Working with our leaders, together we will build a better Minnesota. Thank you.